this is a special session where Edan Yago will be interviewing Diego Gutiérrez-Zaldívar. So, Edan is from South Africa. He grew up in apartheid and is a family of people who, for generations, have been causing trouble for authorities. Growing up with stories around his family fighting the Nazis and escaping Soviet Russia, which was why he grew up in South Africa. When Yago discovered Bitcoin in 2011, he started getting involved because he understood how Bitcoin allowed for families around the world to have sovereign control over their destinies in a way that was never before possible. He is currently a contributor to Sovryn, a Bitcoin DeFi project that aims to be the premier financial operating system secured by Bitcoin proof of work. Diego, he is the co-founder of RSK Labs that made Bitcoin fully programmable by providing smart contracts. He has also been a pioneer of blockchain and Bitcoin development in Latin America. He co-founded the Argentine Bitcoin NGO with over 5,000 members registered at the meetups and 30,000 members in its online community, and the first Bitcoin center in LATM, Latin America. He is also president and co-founder of the Bitcoin Latin America NGO, where he helped create a network of Bitcoin communities with presence in 9 countries in the region and the longest running Bitcoin conference in the world. So without further ado, I'll leave the stage to you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we will be interviewing each other, Edan, no? That's the idea.
Yeah, it looks like it. So I think we met for the first time, I think, in Argentina at the La Bitcoin conference.
In 2013, at the end of 2013. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I think we were both drawn into Bitcoin for the same reasons, right? So we both grew up in places where the government spent all of their time explaining to us how monetary policy shouldn't be run by them, yeah?
Yes, and yeah, absolutely. And systems that were not, that also limiting freedom for people, that because it was not only economic controller, but also that implies some of the individual liberties, that was limiting individual liberties as well, I think money is the blood of our society. So
every time I go down to Argentina and I talk to people there, people tell me everyone has a story about how all of their money got confiscated. The banks de-dollarized and then turned their dollars into pesos, which were worth nothing. How bank accounts got closed, and how obviously, through the hidden tax of inflation, people lost a lot of money. And I know that you've experienced this a few times in your lifetime, yeah?
Yes, I think Corralito, that's the phenomenon you mentioned, that was maybe the more traumatic event, happened in 2001. And it was terrible. You could see the sadness of people in the streets for a couple of years after that happened. And people lost their life savings because the bank said, your money is not your money anymore. We will hold it for you. That went for a year almost. And when people was able to get out, their money was worth 1/4 of what it was before. But some people, in desperation also, like they only let some very specific ways out, and some people in desperation lost even more than that, because imagine that all your life savings, the money, like the elderly had their retirement funds there, like it was devastating. And then I think that was the first realization that your money is not your money in the traditional financial system. So for us, like when Bitcoin started, I also, like you, connected with Bitcoin in 2011, but I didn't see or understood the full dimension of Bitcoin until 2012. But once I did that, for me was the reason why Bitcoin was necessary was so obvious that then I decided to devote my life into it, and that's what I've been doing since 2012. So we don't need to explain why Bitcoin is necessary or relevant in Argentina. It's like
Right.
It's very easy to understand.
It's interesting. I've been looking at some polling that has been done recently. The country with the highest number of Bitcoin users in the world is Nigeria, with more than 35% of the population having used Bitcoin. Other countries like Turkey and Latin American countries also have very, very high numbers. And I think it's because, probably the reason that we were able to connect with Bitcoin so early is because we had the personal experiences. I've spoken many times about having to smuggle gold out of South Africa to get money to my family. But when I was just a very young boy, the rand was de-dollarized and lost its peg to the global currencies. And my grandfather, who was very sick at the time, was suffering from colon cancer, suddenly discovered that his loans, were now worth more than everything he owned, which, and eventually it killed him. I mean, it really accelerated the rate at which he was getting sick. And so I think, we have very personal stories that maybe a lot of other people in this already developed world haven't experienced yet. But unfortunately, it looks like might experience more in the near future. I think one question, Diego, that a lot of people have told me, have asked me about, and a lot more than I do, is what is happening with Bitcoin in Latin America. El Salvador is in the news, Paraguay and Uruguay are in the news, Argentina, Venezuela, and Colombia have all seen growth. What do you see happening?
Yeah, and yesterday Uruguay, when a congressman presented a similar proposal, not exactly the same, but a proposal to also accept cryptocurrencies or a legal tender or close to it, or to formalize the acceptance. So I think I think what El Salvador, this has been brewing for many, many years. No, we started building communities in Latin America in 2013, first in Argentina. Then I was traveling to Chile, Montevideo, but at the same time we were connecting with people in Colombia, Mexico, in Brazil, that they were starting to build the communities. So these, indeed, in the numbers that they were sharing today, they are double that. It's like the online, communities, like 80,000 in Argentina people. It's 10,000 in the meetups. It's like everything has been growing year after year. And what's happening is Bitcoin is becoming kind of a backbone. And that was a little bit of our initial vision, a financial backbone in a region that is completely diverse. It's like Latin America is not, people talk about Latin America like a monolithic thing, no? But Latin America is nothing like the Eurozone or Europe. It's like Latin America is a group of very different countries in terms of political structures, financial models, even legal backgrounds, and that are connected by some cultural elements that connect them. But other than that, moving around Latin America is very tough. There's a lot of friction. It's very tough to move money from one country to the other. They are not really connected. And I think Bitcoin is sorting out two of the main problems of Latin America. One is this kind of patchwork that Latin America is in terms of financial systems. And so it creates breaches between Latin America. People have been using crypto to send money to their families back in Venezuela from Argentina for a long time now. And also the other problem, that is half the population in Latin America is excluded from the traditional financial system. The traditional financial system, it's far behind, so it's not being able to serve the half the population, and people don't trust the system as well, because of the things we were mentioning early on. So crypto is providing an alternative for people who have no alternative, and creating financial inclusion. It's like
right.
It's like as we both think that this is not an alternative system, but what we are building is the future financial system. It's just been developed so far. But I think it's also leapfrogging the region into the next financial system. No, it's like the same that happened in Africa with the mobile phones versus landlines. Landlines never get to, well, I think the traditional financial system it will never get to everywhere, to the population of Latin America.
One question, but from my experience in Latin America, there seems to be much more emphasis on Bitcoin than, let's say, Ethereum or other sort of alternative currencies. Do you think that impression is true? And if so, why?
It is true. And basically because Bitcoin over time has proven to be the best store of value. And that's the other thing that people is looking to in Bitcoin in Latin America, like the local financial systems. Argentina, for example, has 50% inflation per year. Imagine that. And on regular basis. I'm not saying, well, this was a crisis year. It's like, it had like 25, 30% inflation every year for 12, 15 years. Then it spike out, and now it's like around 50% inflation every year. So when you have that situation, you need to go somewhere else. People who was doing some weird things like buying goods as a store of value. Like if you have you are a shop owner, instead of like, what you do is buy goods, because goods will preserve value better than the peso.
Right. So you hold commodities.
Exactly. You hold commodities, so in that sense is a complete, different mindset, and Bitcoin fits perfectly into that. So people is looking, and this will be extended also to stable assets, of course, because stable assets, people has been acquainted to the dollar for a long time as well. So that was, I would say, I think, if I'm not, Argentina is the top world in terms of dollar holdings in a country outside the US.
Right.
So that's the level of,
So we're starting to get some questions from people who are watching. I think it would be interesting to address some of them. So one of the questions that someone is asking is how you deal with fiat on-ramps and off-ramps. I think one of the interesting things about Latin America generally is that there's very well-developed fiat on-ramps and off-ramps which are informal, right? The ability to go and buy the blue dollar in basically any main street in Buenos Aires, and the same thing in Colombia, and the same thing that you experience in Honduras. And so there's a very strong informal economy allowing people to go in and out of crypto. And maybe it would be interesting to talk about how people have been using that with Bitcoin and with stablecoins.
Yeah. Well, we have witnessed lately, as you say, you have this phenomenon of OTC brokers, like over-the-counter brokers, and this, like, I would say informal network, because it's not tied to ILNs or anything. It's just informal. It's not money transfer, money conversion. They call them little trees because they have the green leaves that are the dollars over them. These guys that are exchanging, guys and gals that are exchanging dollars. So that already exists in Latin America. Now what we are seeing is that they are shifting all these. They are shifting into Bitcoin and stable assets. So you have. So that's. Is the structure, the infrastructure, the mindset was already there. Like people was hedging against their states, basically the monetary policies of their states for many years. And now what they are doing is moving into new rails. And that's because if you think about that, Bitcoin is digital gold, but it's very tough to get physical gold. It's like, it's very, very, very tough to, that for first hand experience, but, getting access to physical gold, carrying it, transporting it is very tough. Protecting it is very tough as well. So basically, I don't see this as an alternative system. It's like new rails, new financial rails that are being built, that are open, neutral. They don't judge who participates, so they are open to anybody, and they don't have a political sign. Well, maybe it's a political sign that they don't have a political sign, but so what is happening is that all the systems that people have in place are moving into this new infrastructure now. And in our case, we believe, I think you and me believe, that the foundations for that new financial system is Bitcoin. No, for many reasons,
Right.
maybe we can get
so you know, the panel is called DeFi on Bitcoin.
DeFi,
right?
yes.
And I think there's an interesting difference between decentralized finance on Bitcoin and decentralized finance as it has evolved on Ethereum. So in Ethereum, what we're seeing is a lot of financialization, right? So people are yield farming, and there's collateralized lending and a high degree of leverage. What we're seeing with Rootstock and with Sovryn and with Tropicus and other projects like this, where and sort of Lightning Network and other layer 2 systems which are building financial economic systems on top of Bitcoin, is they seem to have a different flavor, right? Maybe you can talk a little bit about how that is evolving in the different projects that are in the space.
Yeah, I think the vision with which we started Rootstock, and I think the same goes for Lightning and Liquid and other layer 2 systems, is like, you know, Bitcoin is the safest decentralized network in the world, no? In terms of infrastructure, in terms of and the protocol is the safest protocol you can have in a decentralized form. And safetiness comes at a cost, no? So it's like Bitcoin decided by design to sacrifice scaling and sacrifice functionality. And that's a trilemma. It's like, if you have decentralized systems and you want to have maximum security, you have to narrow the surface of attack. Therefore, you have to sacrifice functionality, and the settlement process needs to be have sufficient time to actually, come to an agreement as a network. And also you have to sacrifice scaling, because networks that do thousands of transactions per second or hundreds of transactions per second, because of the nature of blockchain that keeps all the data, grows at a rate that in a few years they become centralized. It's like, who is going to store, a multi-terabyte blockchain in their computer? Nobody. So you lose the ability of independent validation that is part of the ethos of Bitcoin, like how we keep give the users the power to really validate what's going on the network without intermediaries, because it's all about removing intermediaries and creating a peer-to-peer financial system. So how Bitcoin is growing by second layers. And I always talk about the Internet of Value, because I think it's the same model that the Internet of Information had. So you have this OSI model where you say, okay, this layer will take care of this, moving data. This layer will take care of this, like presenting data to the user. Okay, in this case, it's like the Bitcoin layer is taking care of, basically storing value. And that's the core thing. And then you have layer 2 systems that take care of different things. Lightning, smaller payment processing, faster, cheaper scaling. Liquid, maybe a backbone for financial institutions working on Bitcoin. And what RSK is doing is adding open economic coordination layer on top of that.
Right.
And that economic coordination can be used for multiple things. The most obvious thing is DeFi, is creating a full-fledged decentralized financial system. That is where Sovryn, is working, saying, okay, how we build a full financial system that, serves everybody using the same infrastructure of RSK. And then, in the long-term vision, we are also building infrastructure, decentralized infrastructure, like decentralized in the web, but creating all that infrastructure economically coordinated in RSK, secured by Bitcoin and run by people. So we have a peer-to-peer internet. So if you look all that together, we will have a truly peer-to-peer financial system and a truly peer-to-peer infrastructure. So basically, we are operating on a peer-to-peer.
So Naveen just asked, do you mean that dApps are being created on layer 2 Bitcoin, right? So Rootstock is a Bitcoin sidechain, and it's mined. So it's mined by Bitcoin miners, and the native currency is Bitcoin. So you move your Bitcoin from layer 1 to layer 2 into Rootstock. And then, what I've been very involved in is contributing to a protocol that's built on top of that called Sovryn. And what Sovryn has done is create a platform, an operating system of smart contracts, right? And so you can do lending and borrowing, you can do trading, you can do margin trading. And we're starting to introduce tools on top of this, like the ability to do Bitcoin-backed stablecoins. So we're now aggregating different ways of collateralizing stablecoins and creating Bitcoin-backed stablecoin, and we're integrating with Lightning Network. And so I think what's really exciting is that this allows us to start offering maybe more day-to-day economic needs for a lot of people, right? So we're starting to offer loans that are backed by Bitcoin using Bitcoin-backed stablecoins. We are able to start having people from anywhere in the world begin processing these transactions, and so we've been focused on Latin America and Africa, and we're also starting to see growth and a lot of the liquidity coming from sort of Europe and the United States, and I think that this connects to another question, which is, Shofar asks, El Salvador is seeing issues with BTC fees being too high, right? And so what we've always seen with layer one systems, Bitcoin, and then even more so with Ethereum, is that the fees get very, very high, and then it becomes very exclusive, right? So like one of the things that I always thought was sad is, the Ethereum community, for example, hyper-inclusive from a cultural perspective, but the Ethereum chain became the most exclusive blockchain in the world, and only very wealthy people could afford to use it or trade on it. But by having layer 2 scaling, you can now have Bitcoin transactions occur very, very cheaply, much, much more quickly, and then you can also have much more composability, like the ability to have to take that Bitcoin, use it to collateralize stable assets, and allow people to know that those stable assets aren't relying on the Argentinian government, aren't relying on the Venezuelan government. They're relying on code.
Yeah, and I think, that's maybe we can switch sides, but because I want to learn a little bit more of your journey, like building the community and the challenges. But I think you touch like a very good point. It's like what we are building is a full P2P financial system, and that implies also to having a P2P monetary system. So that's where having Bitcoin as collateral to issue stable assets, that's what the money on chain protocol is doing, is like it's essential for this system, because at every point where you need to go out of the system to sort the problem is a point of centralization, is a vector of attack for the whole thing. So you have digital gold, that's the neutral store of value. And I think there's a lot of questions on why not using platform A or platform B that is cheaper. Like, I think this is not about like the short-term solution. It's about building things that will last decades. And that's why, we are building on Bitcoin. It's like, yeah, of course, there are platforms that in a way hijack, like say, okay, I will do this trade-off and do my own platform. But then in the long run, and I'm all in favor of diversity, as you were saying, Ethereum is an awesome ecosystem, very inclusive. But then, you see the consequences of those trade-off or moving fast and breaking things on layer, on protocol layers. It's like on protocol layers, you want to move slow and make sure that you are building things that will last for decades. And in that sense, the scaling problems have been solved already, and the Ethereum community did huge contributions with the rollups technologies, what I call payment aggregations as a concept, and we are all profiting from that, because we are like RSK is fully compatible with Ethereum, so anything that is developed in Ethereum can be ported to RSK but be secured by Bitcoin. So why not X platform or B platform in our vision? Because it's not the only vision. It's like everybody is free to develop what they believe into. But in our vision, the true reason to build all this decentralized financial system, the P2P monetary system backed by Bitcoin with stable assets, then all the financial services that Sovryn and others are building in terms of lending, margin trading, then the DEXs, the exchange of assets, like fully decentralized way, and then the scaling protocols on top of that to serve billions of people. We are building everything on Bitcoin because we believe that Bitcoin is the right foundations. It's like, if you want to build a skyscraper of, I don't know, 100 floors or 200 floors, you need to go down and dig deep in order for that thing to sustain. So it's not about what we can do today. It's not about what we can do a year from now. It's about what we want to do a decade from now, where we hope this financial system will be the financial system of the world and will host trillions of dollars of value of people. And we want to make sure those trillions of dollars are safe from censorship, from governments, from different political attacks. So we protect sovereignty of individuals, which is at the end the ultimate goal of what we are doing. No,
right?
But, yeah. Sorry, I tend to overextend, but I would love to learn a little bit more about your experience building on Bitcoin and building, because of course you started in the Bitcoin community before we even have other cryptocurrencies, smart contracts, and also. So what about that experience?
I mean, my feeling is that Bitcoin, what excited me about Bitcoin wasn't just the fact that it was sovereign money. It was the fact that there was a community behind it that was interested in the courageous attempt to build out and innovate new ways of generating freedom for people. And I think what happened with the 2016-2017 block size wars is the Bitcoin community kind of became allergic. Its autoimmune system became overstimulated, and it became allergic to new ideas because some of the new ideas were so bad. And what we're starting to see now, and one of the interesting things that is happening with Bitcoin DeFi, right, is that I think it's inspiring people to get excited about Bitcoin again, to see how Bitcoin can be leading the charge in providing for a new, transparent, borderless, and permissionless economic system for the future for everyone. And so the battle that we have, like when we're building Sovryn, right? So Sovryn now manages tens of millions of dollars worth of value. It's got tens of thousands of people in its community, and it processed over $500 million in transactions right now, and the whole thing is secured by the Bitcoin network and is permissionless and decentralized. And yet we still need to explain to people why this is important, why this is interesting. But I think the number one thing that my experience has been is that as more and more Bitcoiners learn about the Sovryn protocol, the reaction that we get to is finally, right? The reaction is,
absolutely,
this is what I've been waiting for since 2014, right? Obviously, if you're going to have a decentralized monetary product, you want to be able to use it without going through intermediaries. Otherwise, there's no point. So using Bitcoin on BlockFi or on exchanges or, through an ETF, none of these things, I think, were ever the Bitcoin dream. And they are sort of compromises that we've made in the short term as we've been moving towards building the technologies for truly decentralized use of Bitcoin. And those technologies are here now. So I think we're in a new renaissance for Bitcoin, and maybe the most exciting period for Bitcoin since the beginning.
I agree. I think we started with a dream back in 2000, almost 10 years ago in Bitcoin, and now that dream is becoming a reality. No, now it's something tangible we can use, like a fully decentralized financial system. So yeah, it has been a long journey, and now it's.
And it's not over.
Yeah, no. It's just starting. Actually, the fun times are just starting. It's like the best moment to be in Bitcoin is today. So
fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.